Welcome to How I Got Here, hosted by seasoned educator Jeremy Proper. This is a podcast of conversations with his former students discussing their journey from middle school to where they are today. Guests highlight their successes and the life lessons learned along the way. And now let's welcome the host, Jeremy Proper.
Welcome to How I Got Here with Mr. Proper. I will be talking to former students who will tell their story of their personal journey from Mr. Proper's class, aka Club 128, to where they are now. Everyone has a different path to get to where they are now, and that path may just be the beginning to where they actually want to be. In these podcasts, I hope to tap into the journeys that my former students have taken. Also, for them to share their experiences with my current students, and for that matter, anyone else who is interested in seeing how hard work in and out of the classroom actually pays off. So let's welcome my guest, Trudy Durgy. Trudy, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I am so wonderful. It's so great to have you on the podcast. It's so great to hear you. You sound amazing. I know you said you had a microphone, but it almost sounds like you're on one. It's so clear.
Yeah, it's new phone. It sounds really nice. I was hooking up a lav mic, but it wouldn't let me hear you, which is a little bit important. So
yeah, that's kind of a pain. So to begin, I'd like you to take a few minutes to briefly introduce yourself. Please include when you left Don Estridge, where you went to high school, then college, post-college, and what you're currently doing now.
My name is Trudy. I went to Don Estridge, graduated in 2011, and then graduated high school in 2015. Went off to study at the University of Florida. Graduated a semester early in 2018 with my bachelor's in entomology and nematology, so bug stuff. Began working in museum collections from there. I did a lot of endangered species conservation with down in the Keys with some butterflies. And then the pandemic hit. I was furloughed for a bit. And then since that time, I've moved back up to the Gainesville area. I've been working with the State Department of Agriculture, which in that job I prep scale insects and whiteflies, put them on microscope slides and help a lot of surveyors, farmers, people importing goods, identify pests and how to control them. And it's kind of a interesting job. My friends like to call me the bug mortician.
Nice. It sounds really interesting. It's somewhat morbid, but it sounds very interesting.
Yeah, it's a lot of like hands-on work, which I like. A lot of these like biology jobs have a lot of paperwork involved with them and not a whole lot of.
So are you outside in the field a lot?
Not currently. I'm mostly inside looking through a microscope.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we get samples sent in. And then I go through we send in like branches. We're getting a lot of Christmas trees right now.
Yeah.
And
it's that time
we go
of year.
we go through, find the bugs that are on the leaves. And then I take them, process them, stain them, stick them on a microscope slide, and then identify them.
Wow.
So to species. And it's a lot of jargon and a lot of tiny handwork with dissecting tools. And I have a lot of fun with it.
It sounds it. I mean, like, I know they have that app for people who don't understand plants and you just point your phone at it. It's like ficus and it tells you what it is. You need to invent one that's like bug.
They do have one. Yeah. It's called iNaturalist. It's an app you can download. And
wow. That's amazing. So so are you using it at work? Are you like cheating?
No.
You're like, I don't know what this bug is.
No, it's called a dichotomous key, right? So it's a big book of all of the species that have been identified thus far, and this is just for like scale insects, which is a specific family of bugs, right? And it's you look at this thing through the microscope and you've got this giant book next to you, and it's like a find your own adventure book almost. You go, if it has this feature, go to number 7, and you go down this whole big list.
That's so cool. So it's like you're finding Nemo, as it were. You're like, okay, step 1, do this. Step 2, do that. Page 38, page 37. Oh,
exactly.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. But I mean, over time, you kind of just get the feel for it. You can look at them and say, oh, it's this one, because I remember from this giant book that I have that it looks like this.
That's so cool. Yeah, and over time, you're like, oh, I've seen that bug before. That's a Australopithecus or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
That's the dinosaur.
scientific names,
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that's so cool. That's an awesome and very in-depth explanation. That is really cool. Well, first
I
off,
try my
thank you.
best.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to my students about your life and your experiences. So now that you're into these big words that I can't even pronounce because I'm, not the brightest bulb in the box, how did you get inspired for learning? And with what you just said, I'm sure there's got to be a story of how did you get into bugs as well? Or maybe the story is the same.
It's similar but different at the same time. So I've always been a pretty school-oriented person. I liked going to school. I liked getting assignments. I liked reading things. I liked doing all of that. But I was never a very science-oriented person until later. I
Wow,
was I
interesting.
was much more of an English person. I really took off with the learning in middle school English class with Miss Adamo.
Yeah,
She
that's a common
she
thread here.
yeah, she just you and her, just the two that really did it for me. it
Wow.
was it was her, and she was reading To Kill a Mockingbird, which has turned into
Yes.
one of my favorite books, just because
TKM.
of how she took it and took it apart and didn't sugarcoat it. I think
Sounds like
because
she's
it is.
dissecting a book.
Yeah, she dissected it and interpreted it in a way that wasn't like I felt like I wasn't being coddled in middle school
Oh, that's a
because
positive.
she took it. Yeah, well, she took it because it is a very difficult book to
Yes.
digest because it's very much about classism, racism, that kind of thing, and she didn't sanitize it for me, and I
Right.
thought that was really nice and refreshing because that's all that they did when we were in elementary school when you're a kid.
Right.
And
Right. Right. Well,
um
she took it to a new level that you hadn't experienced up until that time, as
yeah,
well as she's, showing you everything, good, bad, the ugly. It's not
yeah,
just, oh, this tra la la, this is great. And it's
exactly.
it's also from a different time period. So people saw things in a different way and
Yeah.
reading it in a modern perspective, you're like, wow, time was really messed up back then.
Yeah.
And wow. And this woman is writing it this way.
Yeah,
It's pretty amazing.
yeah, it was very much a gateway into figuring out curiosity, I think.
Mm.
It let me realize, like, I don't have to just do everything like your teacher says to do. You can have different thoughts about things and actually ask questions and maybe get them answered and maybe not, or you just have to figure it out for yourself. But
And
that
it's still
was
okay. And there's
yeah,
nothing
and
wrong
it's
with that.
fine. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, definitely English classes sparked that learning,
And
you
then how
know.
about the science? When did that happen? Was that college, high school? Was that
That
later?
was so yeah, it was somewhat high school, somewhat college. In in high school, I had a teacher absolutely hated me. I sat next to my best friend. We wouldn't stop talking. I did
No.
terrible on his
Wouldn't stop talking to your
exams.
best friend. No way.
Oh no. Yeah. But I just did terrible on all of his tests. And it's not for lack of trying. I really did try. I just was garbage at it. And
Hmm.
my phone would always ring in class because I'm dumb and I don't know how to turn off my phone. And he just was we were not friends. But
Yeah, it just was not good.
yeah, but for his final project, instead of just a regular exam, he gave us a vial of bacteria and he told us how to figure out what bacteria it was through different tests, looking under microscopes, heating it up, cooling it down, growing it, and, looking at its characteristics. And then you figure out what it was at the end. And if you were right or wrong, it didn't matter. You just wanted to see the process that you took to get to your conclusion.
Wow.
And I thought it was I had the best time because we got to use, the tools that he's been talking about this whole semester. And it really it
Opened
was
your
it was
eyes.
just fun. It was just fun to be curious about it. And
Curiosity in a different way because for once you were like, well, I can fail because it didn't work out, but that doesn't mean I failed. It's
Yeah,
not like the
exactly.
test that you bombed every time, like you said, that there's nothing you can do about it. Here, my hypothesis just wasn't proven, but I did all the steps that you asked me to
Yeah,
do. You see that I did it. It wasn't like I just Sunday before it was due was like, okay, I'm just going to throw something together.
exactly.
And
Yeah.
he saw how hard you had worked, but it just didn't work. It was like, I remember my friend David, after he graduated college, before he went to medical school, he got a job working in New York City at Carnegie University. And
Hmm.
we were just talking one day, and I was like, so what are you working on? He was like, oh man, I had the worst day yesterday. I'm like, what happened? He's like, I ruined a $40,000 experiment.
Oh goodness.
I'm like, what? You ruined a car? I'm like, how do you ruin a $40,000 experiment? He's like, I just did the wrong thing. And I was like, wow. Like, this was so beyond my scope of comprehension. I was like,
Hmm.
who has a $40,000 experiment and lets a 22-year-old play with it? I was like, this doesn't make any sense. But that's how science works. Sometimes
Hmm.
it works out and sometimes it's a costly mistake.
Yeah,
That is really,
exactly.
really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
So
for this science teacher, you were so the aha moment was like once you got the hands-on application, would you say, like once you were able to actually handle the tools and really get into the sciencey hands-on
yeah,
aspect?
yeah. Once I actually, because I could read something like 5, 10 times and still not understand, but if I actually do what is being described to me, I'll get it like that immediately, and I don't
Yeah,
need.
you're
Yeah,
kinesthetic learner. You're
yeah,
hands-on. You need to touch stuff. You need to feel it.
exactly.
You need to manipulate it. I was the same way. Like when we had talked earlier, a kid had asked me this week or last week, Mr. Popper, what was your favorite elective? I was like, auto mechanics. And they're looking at me like with the strangest look, like, why would you want to learn how to do that? You were college bound. I go, everyone
Yeah,
drives a car. Cars
yeah.
break down. And like you even said it, you've learned how to change your own oil, and it's a sense of accomplishment. It's a sense of like, I
Hmm.
did that and I didn't have to pay somebody to do it because I can
Right.
figure it out myself. That is
Exactly.
that is awesome. Um,
Yeah, and that gave me a good baseline for the precise handwork under the microscope that I do in my job now,
nice.
and
So that was laying the foundation.
hmm yeah, and then the bug stuff came later.
No, the bug stuff came later.
The
Okay,
bug stuff came later, yeah.
nice.
But that's a ridiculous story in itself, I think. Because I was going to college for one thing, and then through a series of unfortunate events, I ended up having to ditch that and do something else, and then I ended up in bugs entomology,
Wow,
and it
that's
just
not your normal
snowballed.
story. That's for sure.
It just snowballed from there. Yeah.
Yeah, but
So
it worked out fine because this is what you're doing, and it seems to be going in a very good direction.
it's much more fulfilling than I think what I would have been doing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, along with that, I want to know if you could turn back time and tell your eighth grade self some advice, what would you tell them, knowing what you know now?
Uh, I want to hug that little girl so bad. She
Hmm.
was so anxious and so concerned with everything and wanting everything to go such a specific way, to a debilitating degree
Oh,
sometimes.
wow.
But I would let her know that, it's okay. Nothing's going to fix itself at 3 a.m. when you're obsessing over it. Just go to bed.
Yeah, right.
Everything doesn't have to be exactly the way you pictured it, and it'll work itself out. It whatever way that you're going to take it is fine, and you'll get where you need to be. You don't have to overanalyze every little minute of your life to get it to where you want it to go.
That's awesome. That's really helpful, and I think a lot of people listening will get a lot out of that because they're living that right now.
Yeah.
And you can go back in
Everything
time.
is everything is so dramatic in middle school, and it does not have to be.
No, it definitely does not. And I love the fact that you can go back and look at it with a clearer, microscope, as it were, and you can really analyze it so much better. Because when you're that 14-year-old kid, I mean, obviously, I don't know what it's like to be a 14-year-old girl, but you do. And you can go back there and say, oh man, I was stressing and obsessing over things that just aren't necessary. And I'm
Yeah.
sure many people out there in the, whatever land that they listen to these things, podcast land, they will go, wow, that's resonating with me. And that's the whole point of these things, is to resonate with one person. If you can do that, then you've definitely made a difference. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Now, going along with that question,
Mhm.
actually, I was just asked to ask this question, not like right now, like it's not an open audio show, but um, um, what was something that you noticed that was a difference between middle school and high school? So when you left middle school, was there something that you didn't realize? Like I asked the question, but not this way. Was there something that you realized that was different? Like here you are in middle school and then you go to high school, that transitional period, like from eighth to ninth grade.
I think it was different than what my middle school teachers had actually told me it was going to be like. A lot of, eighth grade teachers will tell you they're not going to coddle you in high school. They're not going to, stay on top of you for this. But, the first couple years of high school, they're really not trying to scare you as
Good
bad
to
as you
know.
think they are. Yeah. um, and it's a little bit easier of a transition than people think it is. Yeah, it's a lot bigger. Yeah, the classes are harder. Yeah, they expect a little bit more from you, but you don't need to immediately start beating yourself up about college just because you're in high school.
Go back in your mind and try to come up with what was the most challenging educational experience that you had, and how did you overcome that challenge? How did it make you become a better student and a better person? So, challenge wise, was there something that stood out?
Yeah, like what I touched on not too long ago was I initially went to college for vet school. I wanted to become a vet, work with endangered animals overseas and do all this intense sort of zoological work. Um, so I went into animal science when I initially got there. And then I took chemistry, and
Dum
I
dum
am not I
dum.
am not good at chemistry.
Okay.
It just
For those
was,
listening, not many people are. So this
yeah,
is a common theme.
it's totally fine. And from what I've been told, chemistry at the University of Florida specifically is a nightmare. So don't worry about it.
Oh
But
wow.
I
For
ended
those of
up,
you planning on going to UF, you've been warned.
yeah, exactly. um, but I ended up failing chemistry, like intro to chemistry twice.
Wow.
Um, and it ruined my GPA. I had went into the advisor's office for the veterinary college, and she had basically told me, um, this is no longer going to be accepted. Like
Oh,
you cannot continue this.
right, right. Your grade
Um,
point average has dipped below acceptable
yeah,
range.
and it is not something that I can just try again and fix it. It's
Override, right,
Yeah.
right.
So I was either forced to take a year off,
Oof.
um, and just kind of restart my whole academic career, which is not something I wanted to do, nor is something my parents wanted to pay for.
Yeah, financially, no thank
Yeah.
you.
Or pick a different major. So I kind of went back to square one and went to a bunch of, career fairs and job, you know, forums and things like that. And I met somebody who worked in the entomology and nematology department, which I didn't even know existed. Um, and it was just fascinating, knowing that you can get a whole life out of studying bugs
Yeah, yeah,
was
exactly.
was crazy to
The
me. It
thing that
wasn't
most people run away from, bugs, ew.
Yeah, right. It wasn't something that I realized was a valid option. And so I, took a class, an intro class, and not to be cliche, but I fell in love with it.
Oh.
Um,
And it
it
wasn't
was
like intro to icky things. It wasn't the title, right?
No, no, they definitely made it sound a bit more appealing than that.
Now, the one question that keeps popping into my head is,
Yeah.
did a lot of your veterinary science stuff, did that overlap? Was that like, okay, this can go to there, and or did you literally, like you said a moment ago, have to restart?
So most of it was just like credit classes that I took to knock a checkpoint off of my list. So there's a lot of English, a lot of basic math, and a lot of like elective courses for the
Mm.
first year or so. So I wasn't super on any one direction, like any one path just yet.
Do they still call that like gen ed classes, like general education
I think
classes?
so. I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Just trying to let the middle schoolers understand
Yeah.
where it is, because we've done it and they're like, huh? What are they
Yeah,
talking
that's
about?
yeah. Yeah, just a lot of gen ed. a lot of just building up a GPA so that I could get into the niche
Program.
courses that I
Yes,
wanted.
yes, exactly.
Yeah, so it was not the worst transition. I actually got to take off a couple of classes that were affecting my GPA because they weren't necessary
Nice.
for the degree, so that helped a lot.
I'm sure a big
um,
GPA boost getting rid of that science class that you bombed.
yeah,
So
yeah,
like, bye bye, a Jennison you. You're not helping me.
exactly. And yeah,
Oh,
but a lot of the ap- a lot of the things that I learned in my animal science classes kind of did transfer over
oh, that's good.
as far as like the as far as like the biological aspect of it, like knowing the jargon and knowing
Yeah,
how to do
definitely.
certain procedures, it did kind of transfer over, but most of it was just learning from scratch, which I think was good.
And so then it was just a natural thing, and you easily were able to transition. And all of a sudden, it was like the light bulb went on, and you clicked,
Yeah.
and they were like, "This is it." And
Yeah,
all
just the subject matter and the people that were in the classes and the professors, it all just seemed like a much more natural fit. I worked a lot more cohesively with them than I
so the
did
only
in
thing that's
the
running through my head right now is if you don't first succeed, try again. And you
yeah,
finally did. And it didn't really seem like it took. I mean, looking back, it doesn't. But at the time, you're like, what am I going to do? But now
yeah,
you're like, this is a no brainer. This was what I was meant to do. And all of a sudden, it's all
exactly.
fallen into place. And you went from, I don't know what I'm doing to now I have a job working for the state, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's funny. It's funny how that works out. And now I'm looking back on it and I am thinking about what I would have done if I was a veterinarian, and I think I would have hated it.
Wow.
So it definitely was a good career move
Well,
for
they
sure.
say, when things are meant to be, it's easy. Not that everything in your life is easy and not that there
Yeah.
aren't things that are worth fighting for, but the kind of important things, when they're meant to be, it just happens so fluidly and it just comes to fruition.
Um,
And if you
that's
keep
yeah.
pounding your head against the wall, it's like,
Maybe I shouldn't be doing that.
exactly.
Yeah, no, it definitely something that I learned was if, something quote unquote life changing is happening at the moment, don't try to act on it immediately. Let it play out for a while and see what happens, because more often than not, the solution is not going to come right as it's happening. It'll
Hmm.
happen a bit later. You just have to wait.
Right. But the problem is for young people, they don't know what wait means because I'm 14 and I know everything.
I'm still
It's like,
working on what wait means.
exactly. We all are. We all are.
Yeah.
Has it been 2 minutes yet, mom?
Yeah.
That's like the same thing.
Yeah.
So it seems like that the change from veterinary science to bugology, as I'll call it, because I'm science inept.
It's
That
acceptable.
oh, good, thank you. That it seems like that was the change for you, and you were no longer swimming upstream with the salmon. You were swimming downstream. So then my next question is weird because it's like it went from being difficult to not, but it's like, how did you unwind with the difficult course loads you took at different levels of your education? When was there me time? But it seems
Yeah.
like it's weird because you're the first person that once you found the degree that you were like totally interested in, that it all was like, oh, this is gravy, this is easy. But what was downtime for Trudy? Like, what did she do?
Yeah, it's funny because the downtime turned into doing the work.
Wow.
Because a lot of the courses in entomology require a at the end of the semester a curated insect collection in which you have to go out and find the bugs and
Nice. You
process
really
them.
are the bug lady, aren't you?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit, a little bit. But that's cool because you can identify all these bugs. You're like, oh, that's a blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like a grasshopper to me.
If you have a bug, you don't know what it is, send me a picture. I'll let you know. But
Nice. That is so awesome. So wow, that's you see, you're the first person that's ever said this to me. So your unwind was really getting into the work because you loved it so much.
yeah, well, because it's going out into nature with a bug net and just seeing what happens.
Oh,
Um,
that's so cool. Like
yeah,
I
that's where
never could
I fell in
thank you
love
for
with.
saying that because I could never see it that way before. And now I'm like, wow, I'm seeing this through your eyes. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it was a lot of fun. I was never really into, hiking or any sort of, super outdoorsy thing. But once that was what I was required to do, I found out that,
Yes, I do like
I
this.
like outside more than I like inside. So.
Yes, I like outside more than I like inside too. I like mountains more than I like
Mhm.
ocean. Like we all know what it is that we like. Unfortunately, we don't
Yeah.
always live there, but
Yeah.
that's
So.
wow. So have you taken this on the road? Like, have you been able to leave like the area of Florida? Like, have you ever like gone bug hunting like other places just to say, what kind of bugs does, I don't know, Washington State have
Yeah,
versus
it's
Florida?
it's it's interesting because as far as the United States goes, Florida has the most insect diversity.
Wow.
So you can't really go anywhere else and
Oh, this
find as
this
much
is
as
the
you can
spot.
down here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of insects all over the country, but the variety is much
Yeah.
larger down here. And
Wow.
it's mostly just because a lot of things come in through, seaports, and we get a lot
Exactly.
of things shipped in through here, and then stuff just,
Stays.
stuff just doesn't want to leave because it's a really good climate.
Right. Like the iguana. It's not from here, but it's here and
Yeah,
it's not going anywhere.
it's basically native at this
At
point.
this point it is, right. It came from somewhere else, but now it's like, yeah, we're here
Yeah.
and we don't have too many predators to
Hmm.
kill us and we're
Hmm.
thriving. That's so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's mostly what I would do, and which was beneficial in that I was doing work at the same time. But other than that, I did a lot of yoga.
Nice.
Yeah, it just because my brain doesn't turn off very easily. And that
Yeah.
helped me a lot to get that switch in there to
Yeah,
be like, okay,
ADHD will do that to you. I
yeah.
know what that's all about. Been there, struggled with that.
Yeah, it doesn't, completely
No.
rectify the situation, but the getting into your body instead of your brain, and noticing the
Breathing and
spatial
how to slow
awareness and
down.
that
Yes,
kind of thing
yes.
really helped.
The daily
Um,
calm has been a lifesaver
yeah,
for me. I love
it helped
listening
when
to it
the
every morning.
it helped when the bug catching wasn't enough.
Yeah, I could imagine. You're like, I've caught every bug in the state of Florida and it's still
all
not
of them,
working.
all of the bugs. Yeah.
So, what did you learn about Don Estridge as a school after you left its hallowed halls? Was there something you were like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that they taught me that, or I didn't realize that that was this way? Is there anything that sticks out in your mind about that?
Yeah, I realized a little while after I left how incredibly fortunate I was to even be at that school. My sister didn't go to Don Estridge. She lucked out of the lottery and had to go to a different public school, and just hearing her have issues with teachers, other students, the way that the school was performing certain functions that was seemed to be so much easier at Don Estridge. It made me very grateful to be at the place that I was. Um, as far as just how cohesive the experience was, like, I didn't have any problems with any of the teachers, I didn't have any issues with any of the students. It was just very nice
Well,
to
that's awesome.
be there. And
Right. And you see that now, right? Without
yeah,
a doubt. But plus,
for
you got to
sure.
see it through the eyes of your sister who had much greater
Yeah,
challenges to overcome. And you're
yeah,
like, yeah, I didn't have any of that.
yeah. It's a blessing and a curse, I suppose. But I think we both turned out all right.
Nice.
And another thing was that I realized, just like I said before, how much the teachers there just inspired curiosity. It wasn't just do this worksheet, fill this out, this is the answer to this question, answer it correctly on the test and you'll be fine. It was, here's this thing, what do you think about it? Do you have any other questions? How do you interpret this that isn't exactly how I interpret it? And it a lot of the teachers at Don Estridge really fostered that.
It allowed for free thinking and it wasn't
Yeah,
just rote routine, do what I say, not as I do. And
exactly.
you got to actually think outside the box. Well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's really cool. So, is there some inspirational quote that you live your life by that you could share?
Um, I think it's just, what I've been saying, just take your time. Nothing is gonna happen all at once. And if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And you don't have to micromanage your entire life for it to go the way you want it to.
That's an awesome quote. I really think it helps people to understand that life just comes as it comes, and you have to take it as it comes and kind of surf the wave and go with it. And when your one choice doesn't work out, there's a myriad, a cornucopia, a lot of choices out there that you can't always use the big words. Not everybody understands. So not you. So I know you understand. 14-year-old you may have not. So what happens is that we all have to just take life as it comes, and this is a good experience, this is a bad experience. Well, guess what? There's another good experience coming on down the road, and you can't spend all this time harping on all these bad experiences, or else you'll never have a good experience. You'll never find that significant other. You'll never find that, bugology that you didn't realize that was going to be your life's calling, when all you wanted to do was help out little puppy dogs with broken paws. And now you're like, wow, I've discovered all these new bugs and all this interesting stuff. And it's opened your mind to all these new things. That's incredible. Everybody has their own path, their own journey, and it's a winding road to take you, or what it's going to do. And it really makes such a huge difference that people like yourself can come on, give inspirational quotes, give inspiration, talk about what they have done, and, open the eyes of some kids who were just like you. They didn't know where they were going. They didn't know what they wanted to do, or even better, they think they do. And then maybe like you, it changes into something even better. So
it's okay not to know for a while.
That's very good advice. It's okay, says a former student, an adult now, that it's okay not to know. Now, don't get me wrong. You can't just be like, hey, I heard on a podcast, Mom and Dad, it's okay not to know. Yeah, that's not going to go over too well when you're 14. But, it's nice that somebody says it, that it's okay not to know.
As long as you're trying.
Exactly. That's the most important part. As long as you're trying, you're putting in the effort, you're putting in the time. A lot of people think, oh, by the time I start 9th grade, I should know exactly what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. No. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I started high school. I had no idea in the very beginning of college. I was like, yeah, teacher, it seems kind of like what I want to do, what I'm built to do, and let's see what happens. And, if, like Trudy said, if something else comes up, or even if there's a fork in the road, it just didn't work out. I mean, here is a person who is a try hard and a good student and doesn't give up. And guess what? It didn't work out. Well, she didn't just take her Lincoln Logs and go home. She decided, well, I got to find something else to do. And, did the adult thing and said, all right, this didn't work out. I'm not a total waste of space. My life isn't over. I just have to go in another direction. And that's what happens. And guess what? She found her life's calling because the first thing didn't work out. How many people can say that? How many people could say that I tried to do this really hard thing and I fell into something else, which really, realistically, is really hard too, but because you liked it? I think that is the key. I've spoken to many different people, and when they say, I found this because I really liked it, that's when it makes the difference. That's when all of a sudden the light bulb turns on, the aha moment, the teacher all of a sudden makes sense. When the student is ready, the teacher appears, whatever analogy it is you want to use. All of a sudden, there you are, and you found it, and you love it, and you enjoy going to work. And that hour drive each way doesn't really matter anymore because you're going to play with bugs for a living, and that's what you love to do. And that's the whole point of all of this, is to find that thing that makes you want to get up in the morning, go to work, make a difference, help someone's life be better in whatever capacity that it is. And I'm so proud of you that you have, and it's so wonderful that you're here to share this with my current students, because I know that it has opened up the eyes of many different people to say, wow, here was this kid who was very successful, and all of a sudden, it just took a left turn out of nowhere, and I just kept driving down the road and I found my bugs, and that was it. And you just have to go out and find what your bugs are, and that's all that it takes. But I've said this my whole career, and I'm sure I'll say it my whole life. We always learn more from our failures than we do from our successes. And that is no better way to live your life, because if you can figure out, like, okay, this didn't work out, but my life isn't over because of it. How do I move to the next thing? And that transitional period is going to stink. But once you find that thing, no matter how long it took, your life is going to move in a better direction. That's amazing.
Exactly.
So as I leave everyone with all of these podcasts, because the school that we went to is called Don Estridge, I love to ask the students, do you remember who Don Estridge was?
Oh, goodness. He worked for IBM.
Yes, he did. What did
Right.
he do? What did he invent?
He built that big, huge computer.
Well, he not a
Right?
big, huge computer. He's supposed to be the father of the personal computer. But still, you got
okay.
computer, so that's still right. Ding, ding, ding. What has she won, Johnny? Give her the applause. I got to remember to use these things more often. I have a whole bunch of different like sounds, like laughter, giggle.
That's good.
You know, there's a whole, I always forget to use them until the very end. But yes, he is the father of the personal computer. The IBM facility was previously Don Estridge, and they named the building after him, and his family donated his personal computer, not his first one, but his personal one. Unfortunately, Don Estridge died in a plane crash. I believe it was in, I want to say 1984 or 1987. I can't remember the exact date. And him and his wife were on their way to a conference, and unfortunately, a tragic demise. But they wanted to have his name live on since the computer itself was invented in that very building. So I don't think that they really talk about that anymore. Like students like yourself who were there in closer to the beginning, they made you do like some Don Estridge project or whatever. Because I always have kids come on like, I had to do a project. I can't remember.
I don't think I had to do a project, but I do remember going into like that secondary building for a couple of things. And
safe schools.
Yeah, that's where they gave us like the spiel of what the whole history of the building was and why it looks the way it does.
Exactly, because it's not really like your typical school. I loved it in the very beginning when the workmen would come out of the ceiling and scare the kids to death. Like, where did that guy come from? Like, why is he coming out of the ceiling? And I was just like, I would just laugh, like just like you. I would laugh hysterically, and they would get scared like they wouldn't believe. Because there's a fake second floor that there's really next to nothing up there. Like there's small areas where there's computer processors for all the Wi-Fi and all the technology. But for the most part, there's nothing there. But the kids get all freaked out. It's really funny.
Yeah, I mean, you're walking up to this giant concrete, behemoth of a building that's got
that's like Hurricane 10 proof.
Yeah, it's like nuclear bomb
facility. Oh yeah, exactly. Like nothing's ever going to hurt this place.
You're walking up and I'm like, am I going to prison or am I going to school?
Yeah, exactly. Well, in a lot of ways,
on
kids
the inside, it's just
a lot of kids say it's prison no matter where the school is. They feel like it is prison because they can't leave. I'm like, well, it's day prison because you do get to go home afterwards.
Day prison.
Day prison, yes. You just get to do during the day, and at night you sleep in your bed and then you go back tomorrow. So Trudy, I can't thank you enough for coming on and telling your story. I greatly appreciate it. I know that there is another young bug lady out there just like you who's going to be like, I want to study. How do you say it's?
Entomology.
Entomology. I always want to say something else. Epidemiology is wrong. That's what we're learning.
Yeah, there's epidemiology and then there's etymology, which people get confused with. Etymology is words, like the study of language, and then entomologies.
I learned something. I know it's an E word, but I'm just too stupid to remember what it is because I'm just a lowly social studies teacher. I don't play with bugs for a living.
Listen, it's what you wanted to do, and it's wonderful, and I'm very glad that you're doing it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Well, once again, Trudy, on behalf of the How I Got Here podcast, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for telling these students your story. And I know you will change many people's lives and opinions, and maybe you'll have some future I don't know.
There's an N in there.
Entomologist. You see, I just like saying bug lady. It's so much easier.
That's fine.
Anyway, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to How I Got Here podcast with Mr. Proper. Music provided by Miss Mata. Thank you to Patty Fernandez for the introduction. Thank you to Seth Proper for logistics and behind-the-scenes production. Join us next time for another episode of How I Got Here and more stories of